the demon is writing a letter to his nephew.
Oh, Screwtape letters?
Yeah, Screwtape letters. Yeah, I got you a copy of it.
Oh, I've read that.
Yeah, it's a audio version.
Oh,
so
is it? Okay.
yeah, I was listening to it. And
all right.
I just thought, man,
Well,
I think Jim would like
this.
this.
What's it, a disc or something? Or what?
It's on a USB drive.
Well, that would leave me stranded. I wouldn't have a clue what to do with it.
You can plug it into your computer and listen to it there. Yeah.
Okay.
Play it through speakers
Well,
or what have you. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. You know who it's read by? Do you remember John Cleese? He's a comedian.
No.
And,
John who?
John Cleese.
No, I don't know that name.
He's a British comedian. He's pretty funny. He's probably just a bit younger than you, but he's been around a while and he's had a illustrious career. He's got a great voice.
Yeah.
Good inflections. And you know, all of his humor has always been kind of off color.
Yeah.
But a long time ago, so it wasn't too bad. But he's always known to be that kind of comedian, and it kind of surprised me that he was Screwtape.
Well, maybe he saw some truth in it, hopefully.
Yeah, and you know, the interesting thing about listening to that, it's nothing like you'll normally listen to, because when he uses the word enemy, he's talking about the Lord.
He is?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean Screwtape?
Yeah, Screwtape.
Yeah, of course.
So you kind of got to think
You're
in
listening
reverse.
to it from the demon's point of view.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And, you know, Lewis covers that in the introduction. He says, look, you can't believe anything that they say.
Yeah, that's certainly true.
but he said you might find some truth in there. So, and it is. It's really good. It has a lot of... man, dude was a great writer. I'm telling you, he could just crafts the human condition.
Yeah.
Very well in that book.
Well, he and Tolkien and Dyson and I think there was one other guy had that little meeting they call the Inklings, and they were all writers.
Yeah, you know,
Tolkien is a fabulous writer.
There's a lady there was a lady that occasionally came into that group.
Oh, really?
And her name was Dorothy Sayers, and she wrote an essay and spoke it out publicly one time.
Yeah.
And it is a definitive work on classical education. And she was a post-war, how profitable it was to be an advertiser.
Yeah.
She was in the advertising business, and she said, we are at a crossroads in our culture, and this is in 1950. She said we're at a crossroads in our culture of advertisers grabbing the mind of our children.
Yeah.
She said the problem is that we're not teaching them how to think. And she said this in 1949, I believe it was.
Yeah, Mark Levine was speaking about it. Do you know what happened 79 years ago today?
No.
You don't know?
Oh, yeah. It was D-Day, right? Or
No, it wasn't D-Day.
what was it?
Pearl Harbor Day.
Pearl Harbor Day,
The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. And the next day, the U.S. declared war on Japan. But
yeah, I
Mark
knew it was
Levine
big,
was speaking about it. He said, if we went around and polled about 90% of the college students today, not one of them could tell you what happened back
wow.
then. There's no education on that. And I was listening to news. I didn't hear one comment from any news thing about Pearl Harbor Day. But that was a terrible disaster for America and introduced us into the war.
Yeah.
Which 70 million people died. And the average people today don't even know anything about it whatsoever. It's just sad, you know.
It is.
Ancient said that if you don't learn from history, you're destined to repeat it.
Well, and all the lies that they're talking about, you know, kids these days probably think 70 million people died from the coronavirus.
Yeah, it's just so terribly ignorant of factual truth, and the so-called education system we have is just a disaster.
You know, having read on the Screwtape letters and seeing that from a different perspective, and then listening to news events that are going on right now, it's kind of funny when you think about it, if the roles were reversed, because they impeached President Trump over a bunch of made up phony stuff, and they impeached the president, and all this stuff about the voting fraud that happened. I mean, it is a pile of evidence, and you still got people saying there's no proof of that.
Yeah, they just ignore that.
Yeah, they're ignoring everything. And I was just thinking, if it was on the other foot, it's like the leftists would say, you know, those. If there was one incident of it, like it was with the president's impeachment, you know, it's just totally, it's just who the shoe fits, wear it type thing.
Well, of course, corrupt government is not something new.
No.
It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing right now is just a total, in every direction, whatever the Lord said was warnings of the last days, we're seeing it all at once.
Boy, that's sobering, isn't it?
You know, in Matthew 24, where the Lord was speaking about terrible things that happen at the end. And of course, every one of those things has been happening ever since the world was made, almost, but never all at once. And when he said, when you see all these things happening, so now we turn on the news and we see them all.
Yeah.
Earthquakes, famines, wars, rumors of wars, corrupt governments, disease. What else? The attacks against truth in every way. Just on and on. And seeing all these things, not just one of them or a couple of them, but all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
Never happened before. But we shall see how it all comes out. We had a good study yesterday on 12.
The Lamed?
Yeah, Lamed was the 12th letter, you know. And you realize that in Hebrew there's no word for 12. Because Hebrew's only number from 1 through 10. So if they want to talk about anything as 12, it's Echad, or no, it's Shtayim Eser, which means 1 and 10, or 2 and 10. 11 is Echad Eser, 1 and 10. So 12 is 2 and 10. So they don't have a word for 12 or 11 because they don't go beyond 10. So the number for 12 is, or the word for the way they say it is Shtayim, which is 2, Eser, 2 and 10. And we talked about that last week with Lamed, with 10, 12. 12 represents things that is God working with his people, you see.
Yeah.
The calendar is laid out on the moon, the lunar calendar in Hebrew. And of course you got 12 months in a year. And in every month you have a new moon and a full moon. So 12 times a year you get a new moon, 12 times a year you get a full moon. And on both the new moon and the full moon, they blow the shofar 12 times.
Mm-hmm.
And you see so many things happen with 12. There were 12 tribes, 12 apostles. The New Jerusalem, that's mentioned in Revelation, there's 12 gates, 12 pearls.
Mm.
And 12, 12, you see that all. So everything that you see in 12 is God working with his people or for them, for their benefit. We have 12 major constellations in the stars. What's the purpose of the constellations?
To declare the glory of God.
Yeah, and why would he want to declare the glory of God?
Because he loves us.
So who benefits from that?
We do.
Yeah. God doesn't need to be encouraged, does he? Or taught anything, but we do.
Yeah.
And so the constellations declare to us who God is. And, in Psalm 19 it says, the heavens declare the handwork of God, and the heavens are not the handwork of God.
Just declare it and point to it, right?
Yeah. They, of course, are his work, but when it speaks of the handwork in Psalm 19, he's not talking about the heavens. He said the heavens are the ones that are telling you about it. So what is the handwork of God?
Salvation.
Yeah. It's the atoning sacrifice and all that went with that. And so the purpose of the constellations is that we might see that. If you've seen that lessons on the gospel in the stars, have you seen it?
Yeah, I love it.
I got a book of it too. And each of the constellations, if we interpret them properly, actually tell you something about who God is and what he's done, And so the heavens themselves. And there's 4 minor constellations connected to each major one. So there's total 48 constellations. And of course that's a multiple of 12.
Yeah.
And so it goes on and on. Many things about 12. In Revelation, it says the river flowed from the throne of God, and on both sides of the river was the tree of life. And now fruit trees, most fruit trees in the world, they ripen fruit a certain time of the year, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a harvest time.
Mm-hmm.
And what goes on the rest of the year?
Nothing with that tree.
Well, they're just growing or keeping alive. But in that Revelation account, it says on both sides of the river the tree of life grows, and they bear fruit every month.
Yeah, a different fruit every month, right?
So 12 times a year they give their fruit. And of course, if it's the tree of life and they're bearing fruit, what would you get for partaking of that fruit?
Life.
Life. And of course, the Lord says, if you seek me, you'll find me, and they that find me find life. And of course, the world has a definition for life. What does the world mean by life?
Like the bios?
Yeah. If anybody in the world talking about life, what are they talking about?
Talking about living and breathing the flesh life.
Yeah, this humanity that we live in. And there's nothing particularly wrong with humanity for being human. That's the way we were made. But there is a definite limit to it, isn't there?
Yeah.
I mean, you only live so long and it's over, and you're subject to all kinds of problems and dangers and diseases and every other thing. And it's always but dominated so much by the Adamic nature that causes us to rebel all the time. So when the Lord said, he that finds me finds life, is that what he's talking about, what the world calls life?
No.
What does he mean by the word life?
He means the Zoe, the spiritual life, the good life, the
what makes it
connected with God life.
Yeah, that's right. So 12, you see, is 2 plus 10. 10 is the dominion, the ultimate authority of God Almighty, and 2 represents the Lord's people. So you connect the Lord's people to God Almighty, then you're going to get life, are you not?
Yeah.
And you're going to have a life that's overpower the enemy things and all the evils and all that.
Yeah.
So 12 represents that. So in every case, whenever you read anything about 12, it'll be talking about what God does for his people or through them or always for their benefit, And so you come to the 12th letter is Lamed. And what does Lamed itself, what does it mean?
It's a shepherd's hook?
Yeah, shepherd's staff.
Staff.
And so you read the shepherd's psalm, Psalm 23. What's going on in the shepherd's psalm?
Well, he's leading us and watching over us, protecting us, feeding us.
Yeah. And
that all of them are a derivative of that.
takes away fear.
Yeah.
I'll fear no evil.
Fear no evil.
He gives us direction.
Comfort.
What if we wander off and go astray? What does he do?
He leads me in paths of righteousness.
What if we go astray, run off
He'll
somewhere?
rescue us.
He comes after us and finds and brings us back. And what's the ultimate result?
We are surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
So how long is this life he's talking about good for?
Forever.
And where do you spend it?
In Him.
Yeah, in the house of the Lord.
Yeah.
So all that is for the benefit of the sheep, is it not?
Yeah.
The Lord says, I am the door for the sheep, and I lay my life down for the sheep. So when the Lord went to Golgotha, why did he do that?
Because He loves us.
And the purpose was?
To bring us into that temple.
Yeah. So there again, the shepherd exists and takes his position for the benefit of the sheep. What does a shepherd ever do for himself?
Nothing. It's all for the sheep.
He doesn't do anything for himself. When he says when he weeps, he doesn't weep for anything of himself. He weeps for our losses, does he not? If he hurts, it's not because of his pain. It's because of our pain. That's what makes him hurt. And it's hard for us to comprehend, but that's where it all goes. Now, Lamed has a numerical value like all letters do. The numerical value is 30.
30.
30.
Oh, yeah, because it starts going, it goes 10, 20, 30.
Yeah, the numbers only go to 10. So if you want to talk about 20 or 30 or 40 or something, you have to use a letter that represents it. Lamed represents 30. But Lamed also means a shepherd's staff. So if you were reading a portion of some Hebrew writing and you came to the letter Lamed, if it wanted to be at 30, there'd be a little apostrophe mark up next to it. That means it's not a word, it's a number.
Oh, yeah.
So they would recognize that means 30. It doesn't mean a shepherd's staff or something like that. But 30 is a real important number. You read, if you just took a concordance with and look up the word 30, you'll find a whole long list of scriptures that talk about 30. Can you think of any of them that are 30?
30 pieces of silver.
Yes, that's an important one.
Yeah.
Where do you read about 30 pieces of silver?
In the betrayal of Yeshua.
Well, that's the part of it. You read Zechariah, chapter, where is it? About chapter 9 or 10, I think. He says, they weighed out for me my price, and it was 30 pieces of silver, or 30 shekels. And then they took it to the temple, and the priest threw it into the potter's field. So this 30 pieces of silver.
So that was the prophecy.
Okay, so what is it about 30 pieces of silver? Well, Leviticus, it said if someone was going to sell a slave, the price of a female slave was 30 pieces of silver, 30 shekels. To a male, it'd be more. A male slave would be, what would they do with a male slave?
Work him.
What kind of work?
The hardest they could find.
Yeah, hauling log, carrying bricks, mixing mortar, heavy-duty stuff, hard work. The women slaves would be lucky doing housework, sewing and weaving and baking and cooking and gardening and stuff like that, washing clothes. That'd be their work. So even though it was important, it didn't require the strength of the male slave. So a female slave was sold for less, 30 shekels. So the Lord was sold for 30 shekels. Why would he take the price of a female slave? Wouldn't you think he'd be sold for the price of a male slave?
I don't know.
Well, it has to do with the purpose. When you start a word with a lamed, it's a prefix. It means it's to or for,
Right.
or for the purpose of. In other words, if you said,
It's like, yeah, I'm familiar. It's like a, what do you call it in English? Prepositional
yeah,
phrase.
and it's a hamaftech lacheder. That means the key to the room. Lacheder means to the room or for the room. Here's the key for the room. So you put that lamed at the front, it means it's for that. So the purpose of the Lord's sacrifice, it was for the people. And who are the people?
All the people.
But what does he call the people?
Where? What? When
Well,
specifically?
and
Just everywhere.
okay, he's paid a price.
Yeah.
The price was not to buy the Lord; it was to buy us.
The bride.
The bride.
That's it. Yeah.
So that's a feminine
Makes
use of the
sense.
word. You see.
Yeah.
So he was actually being paid the bride price, and it wasn't they were paying for him. They were paying that 30 piece of silver was for our life, not for his. What did he
cool.
get for the 30 pieces of silver? He got nothing except a tack. But the price paid was for our salvation.
Bought us out of slavery.
Yes.
Wow, that's good.
You keep thinking about 30s. Joseph, the patriarch Joseph, entered into Pharaoh's service when he was 30 years old.
Yeah.
How old was the Lord when he entered into public ministry?
About 30.
30. And it keeps on going. But you wonder, why did Joseph go into Pharaoh's service? For what purpose?
I don't really know what you're getting at.
Well,
To be a servant, right?
you think God had a hand in Joseph being in Pharaoh's
Of course he
Okay,
did.
what did God have in mind by putting Joseph in that position?
Well, he said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good.
What did God intend to do with Joseph being in that
To
position?
prosper him,
Prosper Joseph?
prosper the whole world. He prospered everybody, didn't he? He kept the whole world alive, and
Yes. You remember that Joseph's brothers went down to Egypt for one purpose. Why'd they go?
to survive,
Well, why'd they go there? Why were they sent? What was they supposed to do when they got there?
bring food.
They were to buy food. They took money with them, and the job that Jacob sent them for was to go down and buy food. And so they would come to Joseph, not knowing who Joseph is, but whether they know it or not, he is who he is. And who is Joseph?
He's their brother.
But he's much more than that. He's a figure and a type
Yeah,
of the Lord himself, is he not?
yeah.
So why did the Lord come to the earth?
To save the lost.
Yeah, to seek and save what was lost. So the benefactors of the Lord's approach was the people who needed it, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So why was Joseph in Egypt? For exactly the same reason, to save the lost, was he not?
Yeah,
If Joseph had not been there, what would have happened to Jacob's family?
would have perished.
And what would we know about the truth of the gospel or anything? What would have happened to the 12 tribes of Israel? They would have never existed.
Right.
There'd be no hope for anyone. So Joseph literally saved the world, did he not?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Yeshua did, is he not?
Yes.
Joseph started working on that at 30 years old. So did the Lord start at 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And there's in Judges chapter 8, or 10, that is. Can you have a way to look up thing in your phone?
Yeah, we'll give it a shot.
Look up Joseph or Jacob, not Jacob.
Judges.
chapter 10.
Okay.
See if I can remember this.
Yeah. Let's see, I'll go with the browser. And after that, I'll pull out the coffee.
Can you find Judges 10?
It takes a couple of steps. Judge 10 in NIV?
Yeah. Look at verse 3 and 4, I think it is.
Jair. He was followed by Jair of Gilead, who led Israel 22 years. He had 30 sons who rode 30 donkeys.
Okay. His name is Jair.
Okay.
Ir means light.
Yeah.
Yah is God, so Yair means God's radiant light. And he comes from a place called Gilead. Gilead means a perpetual fountain. He judged for 22 years. Now, I realize when they call him a judge, it doesn't mean like a court judge in our judicial system. It means a ruler or a leader. So he led Israel for 22 years. What's it about the number 22?
Well, it's same thing as 12, but plus 10.
Well, yes, that's true. But also 22 is a number of letters in the Hebrew Aleph Tav. It's also the 22nd Psalm is the crucifixion Psalm.
Yeah.
So 22 is, the Lord said, I am the Aleph Tav. So the total of the Aleph Tav is 22. What is the crucifixion all about? It's about salvation. That's 22 Psalms. So he led Israel for 22 years. Now, a person didn't know anything about the numbers. What would they get from the fact that he led Israel 22 years? What would that do to most people?
That's just a number.
Would they even...
No.
They wouldn't put any meaning to it at all. But he did. And now look at Psalm 36, verse 7, I think. I think it's 36:7. Psalm. If you could reach behind me and grab my book right there, I can look some of them up in there too.
36:7?
I think it is. What does it say?
It says, how priceless is your unfailing love, O God. People take refuge in the shadow of your wings.
That's not the one. So try 36:6 maybe.
36:6. Your righteousness is like the highest mountains, your justice like the great deep. You, Lord, preserve both people and animals.
Still not the one.
What wording are you looking for?
It says in one of those right in there that the Lord is a fountain
of life, and in your light we see light.
Yeah, okay.
It's verse 9.
Read that one then.
Okay, so for with you is the fountain of life, in your light we see light.
Okay, Yair means a fountain, or means your light, the light of God, the radiance of God. Yair, Yah and light. And he comes from a place called Gilead. It means a perpetual fountain. So 36, was it 9 of?
Yeah, it's 9.
36:9 of Psalms is a picture of Yair, and his sons rode on 30 donkeys, and they ruled over 30 cities.
Yeah.
But if his name means the fountain of, or means the light of God, or the radiance of God, and he comes from a place that means a perpetual fountain, and now his 30 sons are riding on a donkey. If you're riding on a donkey, what are you doing?
I don't know. Riding a donkey.
Well, what's going on if you're riding a donkey?
You're bouncing around.
Why are you doing it?
You're going somewhere.
You're going somewhere. Where are they going? They rule 30 cities. Where do you suppose they're going?
Check on their people.
And why would they go? They're Yair's sons. Why would they go?
Because they're trying to be good rulers.
Well, who told them to go?
Their dad?
Yair tells them to go.
Yeah.
So they're sort of deputies for him, are they not?
Yeah.
And his name means the radiance light of God, comes from a place meaning the perpetual fountain. Who is the light of God? The perpetual fountain.
Yeshua.
Yeshua is the light. He is the light of God. He says, I'm the light of the world. And he said to the Samaritan woman, if you asked me for water, I'd give it to you. And she said, how are you going to get it? You don't have anything to dip it out of this well. So he's not talking about that well water, is he? Where's he going to get this water that he's talking about?
Comes from within him.
It comes from within. He himself is the perpetual fountain. And that's the name of Yair. And so he's sending his 30 sons out to go out there to take this word or whatever it is to the people in these 30 cities. So what are they doing actually?
Carrying the gospel.
They're carrying the gospel. What did the 12 apostles do?
Carry the gospel.
To who?
To everybody in the world.
To whoever wants to hear it, right?
Yeah.
And so Yair is doing the work of an apostle, and his sons are doing that, are they not? An apostle means someone who is sent. That's what the word means. A sent one is sent. Apostle doesn't just make a decision, I think I'll go do this or that or the other. He is sent. Who sends the apostles?
His master.
And who's the master?
Yeshua.
And so you might say those 30 sons of Yair, who sent them?
The Father. Their master.
I mean, we're speculating. It doesn't exactly say that. But is there any reason to doubt that?
No.
If their job was to rule these cities and they're his sons and they come from a man who means the light of God and the perpetual fountain, then there'd be no reason for them to go out. Why would God spend the energy to tell us about that for 4,000 or 5,000 years about a man who had 30 sons? What does it matter unless it's had something of import, huh?
Yeah.
So I firmly believe that little lesson about Yair is a picture of the gospel being sent out by the Lord, and it's pictured by number 30.
Where did you find that, Jim?
Oh, I don't know.
That's.
I just started looking at things that had to do with 30.
30, yep. And
But,
there it was, huh?
You know, all these things, have a purpose. I firmly believe there's no words in the book that are there just for filler. And there's nothing particularly exciting about a man riding a donkey, and even if there was 30 of them, so what?
Yeah.
That'd be the implication. If you just read that without bothering to look it up, that'd be the conclusion. So what? What is that trail, Well, it doesn't tell me anything. But if you know what these letters and numbers mean, all of a sudden that story starts to mean something real, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And there's a reason for it to be put there. Why would he write that down in the book of Judges for us to read thousands of years later?
Because in your light we see light,
Yes.
It's just a continuation of that extension of learning about him in the Word.
And can you be sure that the enemy does not want you to know anything about that?
You can be sure.
If he can, he'll stifle it or ridicule it or make fun of it or something.
That's right.
Try to ruin the power of it. But if we realize that the Lord gave us that little story for a real purpose, it doesn't say much about those, but sometimes the things that are spoken of the least have the greatest impact because, everything is a parable.
Yeah.
And that's a parable too. So the man with 30 sons riding through to rule over their 30 towns are a parable of the Lord going out. And so when you think what they're doing was for the good of the people, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So 12 is what God's doing for the good of the people. Lamed is 12.
And it's a shepherd's stick.
Yeah. So what does a shepherd do?
He watches after his people.
And everything the shepherd does is for the good of his sheep, is it not?
Yeah.
And he says the good shepherd does it because he loves the sheep. So you could say that God sent Yair out with his 30 sons because he loves the people. So can you see that Yair is almost a picture of Yeshua himself, or of God Almighty sending his apostles?
Yeah. And all those numbers just fit, just like a glove.
Proverbs 1 says, here's the purpose for Proverbs, to understand the parables and riddles and sayings of the wise. So who's the wise?
The Lord.
Yep. And so when do you see any parables or riddles or sayings of the wise? Which chapter are they in?
They're in all of them.
Every one of them, right?
Yeah.
And I've taught for a while that everything in the book is a parable,
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean it isn't true or it isn't, or that it's just a story, but it means there's always a hidden undercurrent meaning to it that you got to dig for it to find it, don't you?
Yeah.
And so, how many people do you know would ever bother to look up the number 30 and find out what that means, or the number 12? It just, when
Not one.
there's a place in there where it says there was a woman who had an issue of blood for 12 years, and she came and touched the hem of the Lord's garment and was healed. He was on his way to heal a 12-year-old girl that needed to be healed.
Yeah.
So those things happened because the Lord was concerned for the well-being of whoever needed it, right?
Yeah.
That's 12. What's a bar mitzvah?
It's the 12-year-old having their celebration to coming into manhood.
Yeah, well,
following son of the law.
Yeah. Somebody mentioned that means they're called an adult. It doesn't mean they're an adult, but it means they have taken on the responsibility. toward the community, toward the mitzvah, the Torah, the teaching. So they have to answer for their actions. In other words, it's a situation of responsibility is a good word. But so that's at 12. When the Lord was 12, they took him to the temple. Remember, Yeshua. It's the only time in his childhood that they ever say anything about it except when he was first born. But at 12 years, they went to Jerusalem for the Passover, and being 12, what would happen at age 12?
Well, they would have to recite the Torah, and
he'd go
kind
through
of be tested by
a test drill by the rabbis. They would test him on his knowledge of the Torah. Now, every young boy at 12 years, and even the girls at 12 have what's called a bat matzah, same thing. They would be expected to be able to answer the questions that the rabbis would ask, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They've had to learn it, and so the rabbis knew about how much to expect out of them. I'm sure they would tone the test to a point where they could expect them to answer them correctly.
Yeah.
But what happened to those rabbis that tested Yeshua?
They were quickly dumbfounded.
They were just staggered by the answers he gave.
Yeah.
They didn't disagree with the statements, but they said, how can this 12-year-old know so much? It's so exceedingly greater that this is no bar mitzvah kid. This is like the very voice of God himself. And those men were just stunned by what they heard. And what were they hearing, really?
They were hearing the Word himself speaking.
Yes. And it says, oh, God himself was just speaking to them. So here comes Mary and Joseph. They've been looking for 3 days for him. Couldn't find out where was he. And they finally come back to the temple after 3 days. There he is discussing with the old Pharisees. And when they asked him, why did you do this? Why have you done this to us by disappearing and so on? What did he answer them?
He said, didn't you know that I would be about my Father's business?
Yeah, it's time to take responsibility for what I'm here for, right?
Yeah.
Time to be entering into the business. In the old days, when a son was 12 years old, ordinarily he would be expected to enter into his father's business, whatever it was.
Yeah.
So here was Joseph. He was some kind of a craftsman. They call him a carpenter. We don't know for sure what he was. Could have been a stonemason or a woodworker or something. Yeah. But no doubt a hand worker of some sort. So here's Yeshua at age 7, for example. Do you think he was ever in Joseph's workshop?
Oh, yeah.
What would he do there?
Swinging hammers or whatever.
Yeah, picking
whatever
up
tool there was. He was
picking up
playing
the
with
scraps, put them in the wood pile, or sweeping the floor, or
Yeah.
doing different things. But if a customer wanted to come in and order some work done, would Yeshua at age 7 take care of that customer?
No, he would just be watching
Yeah,
and observing.
because the responsibility was Joseph. But when he got to be 12, then a customer would come in and Joseph could say, "You take care of this one."
Yeah.
Because he's now going to become responsible to the business. And they would expect him to do that. Do you suppose Yeshua did that exactly?
Oh, yeah.
Very likely. And we don't know anything more about him until he's at age 30. But when he said, "It's time for me to be about the Father's business," was he talking about Joseph?
No.
Was he doing the business of the Father?
All right. I suppose he was, yeah.
You suppose?
No, I know he was.
What was he doing?
He was proclaiming about God
To who?
to the people,
Which people?
people who were listening.
At age 12? No, he was speaking to the rabbis who were questioning him about the bar mitzvah.
Uh-huh.
But he was teaching them things that they had never perhaps even heard before, or what his knowledge of was so great that they were just stunned by it. Don't you think he said anything that made them think about things they hadn't thought about before?
Yeah, that's the evidence of what they said.
Yeah, so he's doing the business of the Father right there.
He's exposing
And he's doing
the what is it called in 1 Corinthians 2? The deep and hidden mysteries of God.
Yeah, he is. And I'm sure that when those rabbis who were questioning him, when it was all over, they had a lot to think about for years after that, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
Things that they'd never dreamed of to understand. And so, did it have an effect on anybody that those rabbis talked to, perhaps?
Oh, yeah.
You remember when
Because it was about 15 years later that John was doing his ministries, and those people were prepared.
and we don't know, how did John know what he knew? Where did he get that understanding
He
from?
got it from the Lord.
Yes, but the Lord was speaking through the rabbis at the temple and the priests many times, so we don't know specifically where John got that news word from or anything, but perhaps these rabbis that Yeshua was talking to at age 12 may have begun teaching some of these things to the people. We don't know. But the business of God was to redeem Israel, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And all people. And so you can be sure the Lord, when he went about that, he wasn't just rambling off clever little tidbits of trivia of the Torah. He was expounding on things that people need to live,
Yeah.
because that's what the business of God is about. So even in doing his bar mitzvah lesson, he was being about the business of God. And Lamed is always God doing things for his people, you see.
That's
So
good. That's good.
that's your 12.
Yeah, and I saw on the sheet you had the 144,000.
Oh, yes, that was pretty important, too. You know, a multiple of 12, 144,000. Now, what was that 144,000 based on? It's in Revelation.
The number of tribes.
Yeah, it started with the 12 tribes of Israel. And remember, in this part in Revelation,
They had the 12 candlesticks, too.
yeah, it says, well, the Lord said to some angel that they were to bring plagues on the world. And he said, you don't do anything until I've sealed my people. So what does he mean by sealing his people?
I don't know. Maybe with the Spirit?
Yeah.
Because that's the...
Well, what's a seal?
Close it up?
It's not a seal like gluing the door shut.
Right.
It's a seal like a government document that...
Like approval.
Yeah, if you... For example, you have a what do you call it, a notary public.
Right.
What do they do when they take your letter?
Put their stamp on it.
They put their seal on it, don't they?
Yeah.
Why do they put that on there?
Prove it was them and that they witnessed what they said they witnessed.
Yeah, so that seal represents some kind of an authority
Yeah.
to properly verify this document. So when the Lord seals his people, he puts his document here, his stamp on them to show who they belong to. It's like a brand, why do you brand cattle?
So you know whose they are.
To show their ownership, that's right. So the seal of the Spirit establishes his ownership of whoever he seals. Now the enemy also counterfeits that with a seal. You read about that where he's talking about putting a number on their hand or something like that.
Yeah.
Now whether or not that's to be taken literally, I don't know. My guess is the seal of the Spirit of God is that a visible seal. Can you look at someone and see if they got it on them or not?
No.
No, because it's in the heart, isn't it?
Yeah.
My guess is that Satan's seal might also be invisible. Might not be something to be taken literally. But whatever it is, it establishes who owns them, right?
Yeah.
So the Lord said to this angel, don't do anything until I've sealed my people. So what would the seal accomplish in that situation?
Validation.
Well, he said, don't do anything, don't bring any plagues till I've sealed my people.
Yeah.
So what's this seal going to do?
Protection.
It's going to protect them from the effect of the plague.
Yeah.
The plague, it's just like putting the blood over the door at the
Just
Passover.
thinking about that.
That's a seal that shows these people are under God's protection. So here comes the death angel. What does the death angel do when he sees this seal? He can't go in there. That blocks him out.
Yeah.
So the seal protects the people. And the Lord said to this angel in Revelation, don't do anything until I've sealed my people. So here's John writing this. He says, I heard him say that. Now, where was John looking? What direction was he looking when he said he heard him say that?
I don't remember.
Well, he just hears it. He didn't see it. He heard it. So someone's talking behind your back and they say something and you hear what they said.
Yeah.
So which way are you looking?
Away?
You're looking some other direction.
Yeah.
Because you don't see it. So he said, I heard the number, and the number was 12,000 from this tribe, 12,000 from that tribe, and he goes right around the circle. He names all 12. So 12 times 12,000, what do you get?
144,000.
Okay. He says, I heard the number that were sealed, and the Lord said, I'm going to seal. So how many people did the Lord seal?
That number?
Well, that's what he saw, wasn't it? He said, I heard the number.
Yeah.
There was 12,000 from each, 12 times. He sealed 144,000. Now, there are a lot of people, the JWs and different ones, that think that's how many people are saved.
That's the exact number, yeah.
Totally false. Because he said, I turned and looked. Now, I heard him say this.
And then there were multitudes.
I'm looking off somewhere else, but I hear the words. I hear 144,000. And where do they come from?
From all over.
No, it doesn't say that. It says they come from the 12 tribes of Israel.
Well, that's what I meant.
One from each tribe, 12,000. So you expect 12,000 Reubenites, 12,000 Benjamites, 12,000 Ephraimites, 12,000 Judites, and so on.
Yeah.
He says, that's what I heard. Then I turned and looked.
Yeah.
He said, I saw a number that no one could ever count. 144,000. How long would it take a census crew to count a sound of 144,000?
I don't know.
Well, if they're doing it your way, it would take forever. But if they're doing it legally and rightly, a few days they could handle that, couldn't it?
Yeah, no doubt.
144,000 is a small city.
Yeah, yeah.
But he said, I heard the 144,000. Then I turned and looked. What did God say of Abraham and his descendants?
It'd be like the sands of the seashore.
How many sand grains are there in the seashores around the world?
Countless.
They're beyond all count.
Yeah.
He said, I saw a number that no one could ever count. So what was he looking at when he heard that, when he saw that? I saw a number. He said, I heard 144,000. That's a definite number, a small city. I turned and looked. I saw
the world.
I saw the sands of the seashore.
Yeah.
And so how many did the Lord seal?
Countless.
Beyond count.
Yeah,
And
beyond human count.
Now, the ones I heard came from the 12 tribes of Israel by name. Which tribes did the ones he saw come from?
From all nations.
Says they come from every tribe, every tongue, every kindred, every nation. So,
boy, that's good news.
So what happens to this 144,000 thing?
Yeah, it's just.
Is it real or what is it?
It's a pointer to.
It's a parable, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's a
the
picture.
Countlessness.
It's a picture of something that, in Hebrew, even the number 1,000, that concept. Once after a while, you read something where there's 1,000 or a multiple of that. 3,000 saved, 3,000 died.
Mm-hmm.
These are numbers that represent something that's a vast amount. We use a little catchy number. We say there's jillions of snowflake. How many is in a jillion? What does that mean? It's just a vast number that we don't even have a word for it. It's just a great number beyond count. Yeah. So when he said, I turned and looked and I saw a number that no one could ever count, beyond count. That's exactly what the Lord said Abraham's descendants would be, wouldn't it? Mm-hmm. So the 144,000 is a picture of that uncountable horde. And they were all sealed, were they not?
Yeah.
The Lord said, don't do anything to the angel until I've sealed my people. I heard the number, I turned and looked, and what I saw made 144,000 look like just a drop in the bucket, mm-hmm. which it really is. So how many of the Lord's people are there?
Countless.
Mm-hmm. Now, it doesn't. Some people think if you could count all the stars, you got the exact number. See, you're trying to make literal out of a parable. It doesn't mean there's the same number of people as there are grains of sand or stars. If you looked at anything about the universe, the constellations and everything, we live in the what do they call it? It's not a constellation.
Milky Way?
Yeah. What do they call that?
Galaxy.
Galaxy, yes. How many galaxies are there?
Those are pretty countless, aren't they?
Billions. How many stars are in a galaxy?
You can't count them.
Yeah. It's beyond belief. And so...
Yeah, it's staggering.
If a lot of what looks like stars to us are actually a galaxy.
Yeah.
The lights all combined. And there's billions of stars in that one thing. And so nobody but God has any idea how many of them there are.
What little Hebrew that I've studied, there is the meaning of the word that he used, countless like the stars. Mm-hmm. There's a direct connection between the way the stars look, the milky look, mm-hmm. and it's actually the term is milky, just like the Milky Way, and it's got a direct correlation with seed, human seed.
Okay, yeah.
And
you got any more of that?
Yeah,
kind of I'd take a little more shot.
Yeah, and that's interesting right there. That's interesting. We got some thick cream today, buddy.
That's good.
I think I'm gonna save a little bit for myself.
Sure. You need a little light for the...
No, I'm good.
Okay.
I got a little light. Got to move the arrow to the right place.
I think that's right. Yeah, thank you.
I could give you some.
I know. Have you seen that stuff of Louis Giglio?
Yeah. I actually saw him today.
Oh,
Not that segment,
you
but
saw him?
No. I saw him on video.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what was he talking about? He was talking about, is this the end times?
Yeah. Well, I got a disc of his or I don't have it. It was actually Tommy's. I had it from her, but
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Talking about the stars and all that.
Yeah, and he said
the music of the sphere.
He said if the solar system, including the sun and all the planets, were the size of a quarter, that the Milky Way galaxy would be the size of the North American continent. Just this one galaxy, and there are billions of them. So, when he says that the descendants of Abraham be like the stars,
Yeah.
he doesn't mean they'll be the same number, but he means it'll be beyond count. You can't count them. And it says the day will come when he will call his people from the farthest seas, from the one end of the earth to the other, and from the farthest seas he'll call them back to him. So how far away is the farthest seas? What do you think he meant by that? It's a parable.
Yeah.
Does he mean the Indian Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean or the Arctic Ocean, or where's he talking about? He says,
Maybe if you're on the Indian Ocean, he's talking about the Arctic Ocean. If you're on the Arctic Ocean, he's talking about the...
what do you think he really meant by the farthest seas?
It's the parable of everywhere.
Well, how far away from God can you get if you belong to God?
You can't get away from him.
Well, he's going to call you from the farthest place.
Yeah.
How far could you get away? What's the farthest place you could go?
You can't.
Yes, you can. He's going to call him from there, wherever it is.
The farthest. What do you think about the coffee today?
I think it's good.
So you remember how I asked you those questions? I asked you one question, but there was a whole bunch more on the list, but you mind if I ask you another one?
Okay.
Another set of them?
But you have to answer the question about the farthest sea first.
The farthest sea?
Yes. He's going to call them back from the farthest sea. Where have they gone?
To the farthest sea.
Where is that?
I don't know. It's a long way away from here.
How far is Noah from here?
Huh.
How far is Moses from here?
They're a long way.
Joshua, where did they go?
To the farthest sea.
Where is it?
It's through time, through places. This is a long way. It's beyond imagination.
Could you find it on a map somewhere?
No.
Well, where is it? Where did they go that's so far away? The Lord said, I'm going to call them back from that place. A little hint. People that are living are right here, aren't they? See those people over there walking door? They're right over there. I can see them.
Right.
Where could they go to the farthest place where I could never see them?
Other side of life?
Yeah, they go into this place called death, don't they?
Yeah.
In Hebrew, it's called Sheol, or the place of, sometimes referred to as the grave.
Yeah.
But then they're far away. We can never reach them again. You could get somebody that you know that's living on your phone, or write them a letter, or go visit them, or you could go see them, because they're here.
Yeah.
But people have gone, you can never go see them again. They've gone to a place far, far away. Lord said, I'll call them from the farthest seas. I don't know how far they've gone. Doesn't make any difference to God. Can he call them back?
Yeah, he can call them back.
And so he's going to call people from the farthest you could possibly get from an experience. And of course, we're talking about ancient. It goes clear back to Adam himself. Where is Adam?
He's in that far place.
Mm-hmm. And so the Lord said the day will come when everyone who's ever lived on the world will have to stand before God in his judgment. And does it matter how far away they've gone from the present situation? Makes no difference. He's going to call them back from the farthest place, which means there's no place that he couldn't go and say they're so far gone I can't even find them anymore. Because he's referring to a situation in which people will you can't get away from God by just dying. That doesn't take you away.
Right.
Because you may depart this present situation, but you're still somewhere, aren't you?
Yeah.
And God knows where you are, so it doesn't matter how far, how long, whether they've been dead for 5,000 years. Does that matter?
No.
Doesn't matter. Or if they died last week or yesterday, or if they're still walking around here today. Which one is inaccessible to God? I mean, they're all there. So,
hard to wrap your mind around, isn't it?
well, it's bigger than our hand. We can't handle that because we're so locked into this finite situation that we're in. But there are things that we just have to say, well, I don't get it, but I'll just take it because that's what he says. I can't wrap around the idea of eternity. It's beyond me. How can anything exist that always has always been and it never had a beginning? I can't comprehend that.
Yeah.
But still, that's who God is. And because we always want to say, well, where did it start, or how did it start, or
Yeah.
when did it start? You know, the concept that God has just always been.
Even that is too
Yeah.
big for our minds.